Welcome. This is Leigh Brown. You've got Rob Hahn, industry provocateur, to talk about all things real estate and whatever we feel like talking about, which means you're here for a reason and for something you want us to talk about and say things out loud that you don't want to say out loud. We're your people. We just love talking about real estate.
Reach out to us, but specifically we like talking about organized real estate, which we are both fans of. In a way.
We are. There's a reason that we poke at things because organized real estate has to exist. And I had somebody ask me the other day, like, what happens if NAR dies? And I said, something will fill that gap because nature abhors a vacuum. They said, well, who's it going to be? I said, probably Zillow, unless CoStar kills them, in which case CoStar fills the gap. And I don't really want a money-driven corporate entity being the voice of real estate, which is actually what's happening right now, which is the reason we want NAR to get healed or fixed, because right now Zillow's our voice in DC. And nobody wants to say that out loud, but it's true.
So let's set the context a little bit. Obviously, we haven't recorded in a little bit because we've both been super busy and traveling and all this stuff. Hopefully we can get back on a regular schedule. But did you go to NAR Next, the big annual convention?
I did not. This is the first, I didn't go to Boston last year either, but I went to mid-year last year. This is the first full calendar year that I have not gone to a big NAR event.
Okay. I think I wrote a post about this and said, here's why I didn't go. Right. And I didn't go to Boston either because I have zero interest in spending November in Boston. Like, whose idea was that?
The hotel.
Mid-year. Exactly. But Houston would have been fine. I obviously lived in Houston. I like it. But this year, I'm like, number one, I'm likely to get like barred from the premises. They're probably like wanted ads out with like Rob Hahn, like do not admit. But even if I were, I just felt like nothing really that important is going to come out of this, right? But that was my reasoning.
I mean, I'm not on a committee. I resigned my seat on the board of directors thanks to my legal counsel's advice. And I love a lot of the humans that are there. I love the humans that are serving. I appreciate their efforts. But I also know that for me to take the time away from my business, which also means the time away from my family and my nonprofit, to spend about $2,500 out of pocket to go to a city that I don't like, because I used to live in Texas, but it wouldn't have been Houston. and also have people that love me, want to talk to me, but have other people talk about me when I leave the room. It's just, I don't have the space for it right now because my goal in doing NAR stuff all these years was to elevate the profession. And that I don't think that's happening right now. I wish it were, but I don't think we have a North Star as an organization. And frankly, to see that strategic plan drives that point home. There is no North Star. There's a whole galaxy of ideas.
There's a North Star, but we'll get to that. I mean, but the point here is, again, I mean, I'm assuming everyone watching or listening knows who you are, knows your background. But in case, like, gosh, I've known you for well over a decade now. But you've been one of like the biggest.
First time I met you in person was in Oklahoma at the Oklahoma Realtors in like San Antonio Realtors when they were in the middle of one of their kerfluffles, 2014, 2015.
Something like that. But
I've known your wife longer than that.
Yeah, that's true. But everyone's known my wife longer than that. She's much more likable. But I'm just saying, like, I've always known you as like one of the biggest supporters of NAR, of the Realtor. Again, like the biggest supporters still have like some of the issues, there are things that they would like to see, but it wasn't like you're some Kool-Aid drinking, but I've always known that about you. And the fact that NAR managed to alienate that. In other words, the thing that we hear all the time, if you care, then you should get involved, right? You should volunteer. You should serve.
I used to say that. I said that to everybody. And now I have trouble saying that.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, this isn't somebody like, people accuse me of hating NAR. I'm like, it's exactly the opposite, actually. I love the realtor movement. The reason why I'm in real estate is because at least I see the idealism of it, right? And I would like to somehow figure out a way to bringing that back to sort of like, it really is a little bit like make Realtor great again. I don't know how else to put it. It's very similar. Like, you read the Constitution, you think about what America used to be, and you're like, we used to be great. Can we make it great again? It's a little bit like NAR used to be great. Can we make it great again? It's that mindset. I want to establish off the bat, like, neither of us are NAR haters. If anything, we just want to make it great again. And it's just not great right now. And we've both been kind of alienated and pushed out the tent, right? Because NAR is not a big tent.
You got pushed out because you saw things 10 years ago that are happening right now, but it hurt feelings for you to say that. I got pushed out because still not 100% sure why, because I was friends with all the people who pushed me out, except that I didn't accept their version of timelines. I still don't know. They've said so many things about me that I don't think they know why they pushed me out, to be honest.
I mean, I don't know either. You'd have to ask them, but I'm going to guess it's because you're a conservative or a Trump supporter.
NAR,
I know, but NAR did go through, and I think it's still kind of in there, like that whole sort of wokeness period, right? When everything was like...
Did you read the strat plan? They're still in it. I mean...
I think it's a little less, but you're right. I mean, there's a lot of like that in there, but NAR did go through that.
That begs the conversation. It's always said amongst the dues-paying members, and I'm still a dues-paying member in good standing, which is, I think, why it's even worse that I keep getting pushed out, because I am a member, I pay dues. When you look at how the organization operates, you have pushback from volunteers consistently. Are we a member-driven organization or a staff-driven organization? We should be member-driven, and I can't disagree with that, because staff, as wonderful as so many of our staff are, they get a paycheck, the members don't. And I think that's where the disconnect stems from at its core. So if I look at our staff and they're in downtown Chicago or they're in downtown Washington, D.C., by just basic statistics, they're going to be on the left of politics because that's who lives there.
That's
Even though, of course, there are people of all political persuasions on staff, but the vast majority have one viewpoint. And so if the vast majority are driving the agenda for the committee meetings, the organization is going to veer in one direction, even though I think I am one of the majority of members who is on the right or center right. I can't even call myself center right anymore. I'd be myself with this all the way on the right, but there's a lot of center right people.
Yeah.
But they're not welcomed because when they were raising their hands to ask questions, taken off the hub, post taken down, just not allowed to speak. It's crazy.
No, right. So that's the background. With that said, let's talk about what went down, right? And I think specifically, we need to be looking at this quote strat plan. Now, you made a comment that this is not the full strat plan, and I agree. But at the same time, I'm a guy who used to do strat planning for organizations, for associations, MLSs. So I was never a fan of doing a strat plan that was like chock full of to-dos,
because that's not a strat plan.
That's not a strat plan.
A strategic plan says it's a one pager. To be honest,
I think so.
Very boiled down, what I call portable. I do strat planning for our associations.
Right.
So to not get a full version of the NAR strat plan, I'm thinking, how am I supposed to guide locals and states if I don't know what the national plan is? Oh, because it's got to be under wraps. It's confidential. So are your constituent bodies not able to receive the information? But when I saw that plan, I'm like, this is just all tactics. The organization does not have a clear portable plan where you said, what's NAR's job? They just go, well, this and this and this and this and this and this.
Well, part of the issue, though, is that because they don't have a strategy, right? I mean, that's, if you want to get right down to it, as I said, this is not strategic and it's not a plan. So, and I'm trying to pull up the actual document while we're talking, but while I'm trying to do that, give me your sort of just general take. Like, what was your initial take on what you read?
My general take is they still don't know where they're going. And I think this is a failure from a staff perspective who look at this stuff every day, and a failure from our leadership perspective who don't understand how to look up and out, because a true strategic plan says, let's look up and out. Who are we and where are we going? And who do we have to be to get where we're going? And I read this plan, and it is so confusing. And in fact, the Marxism has snuck in here. I don't know if you saw that yell at you like it yelled at me. But if it's the National Association of Realtors, it is a trade association of realtors, of independent contractors who help the public buy and sell real estate and their affiliated brokers. Well, then I saw that one of the stakeholders they list as a consumer. The consumer is not a stakeholder for the National Association of Realtors.
Right.
They're a client of the members of, but the consumer is not, that can't be the goal of the National Association of Realtors. The national government's job, if they have any kind of limited job at all, Mr. Anarcho, what do you call yourself?
Anarcho-capitalist. I'm an ANCAP.
So if the job of the government is to get out of the way, but they're to make sure that consumers have a chance, I can't figure out for the life of me why NAR thinks that the consumer is a stakeholder. The consumer is a consumer of what they are producing. And then they said in there multiple times that property ownership for all. No, property ownership for all would say the government gives you property ownership because it has to be for everybody. If there's anything realtors understand as 1099s, property ownership is not for everybody. There are people who A, have no desire to chase it, and B, don't have the financial capability to chase it, and C, aren't willing to do what it would take to get into the space to buy. They like being tenants. They like being at a rental property because they don't want roots. They don't want responsibilities. And I see property ownership for all. I'm like, that should never have been a goal, and here it is front and center. Why did somebody not speak up and say, our goal is opportunity for all? It should never have said property ownership for all, but ownership opportunity, absolutely. Somebody wants to chase it. The realtors say, our members, because our members are our responsibility, they will help you find a way there.
Right.
But the NAR doesn't serve the consumer. And it never has, and it never should. The NAR serves the members who serve the consumer. It's two different things.
I guess I'm going to differ with you slightly, right? In that, and this was, I've always felt that NAR, again, and it's still to this day, you go and read the Code of Ethics preamble. I think that sort of spells it out. It's not that NAR serves consumers. It's that NAR serves the nation. I really mean this. I think NAR, at the founding for most of its history, was a patriotic civic organization.
Totally agree.
Right. That was very commonplace, by the way, throughout America in like the 30s, 40s. You know what I mean? Like, this wasn't some weird, like the Lions Club is a patriotic civic organization. You know what I mean? Like, the whole premise was we're just people who share an interest, but we care about our community, we care about society, we care about civilization. So we want to support that. And the way we're going to do that is through real estate, because we're all in real estate, right? So I genuinely believe that, right? So it's not, it's not consumers. Right. But it's not consumers.
The stakeholder is the country. You could absolutely say that the patriotism does have an impact. But if you say it is the consumer, if they're the stakeholder, that means they have the power, and they do have the power. They get to pick and choose if they want a realtor or not, which one they want.
Right.
But should the consumer, who knows nothing about organized real estate, be telling NAR how to run? Well, if they're a stakeholder, then they have a vote. Wait, what? We already find this in the state real estate commissions. They love putting a consumer in who's not related to real estate to help drive the real estate decisions. And categorically, that person is a disaster because they don't understand the intricacies of the business. And here they are bringing regulatory affairs to the front. It's crazy.
So that really disturbed me was this screen, right? Which is like the very first, right? Like, you look at the strat plan, it goes from...
Oh, it's that first sentence, isn't it? How our members are thriving?
Yeah. I'm like, okay, our metric for success is how members are thriving in their businesses.
I wrote that down too. Oh.
That came first.
Yeah. Is that commission dollars? Is that number of transactions? Because in either one of those, you're talking about the money being the driver. And a lot of your members actually don't have money as a driver, but... All right, so now we're in an inflationary environment. So if our members thriving is them making more dollars, doesn't that live in direct opposition to number two, which is more affordable home ownership?
Here's my question for you, Leigh, because I think you are still very much involved, and I think you were in leadership positions under Bob Goldberg.
I was the vice president of advocacy for anybody who still can't believe that they let me that close to the leader.
So I don't know if you remember, but I wrote a post back in 2017. After, I think it was Bob Goldberg's first annual, when he came on stage and talked about, we are not just the National Association of Realtors, We are the National Association for Realtors.
And we're going to go on ride-alongs with realtors. And I think everybody there cheered because, yes, the staff need to go out with us in our day-to-day life and see what realtors do. They're going to finally understand us. And some of them did.
I know, but here's the thing. I wrote a post at that point saying this is a problem. Because to me, that was NAR losing sight of like who they were. Right. And this now completes that transformation. It's for the same reason we just talked about. The National Association of Realtors was a patriotic, civic-minded civic organization. And the idea was, come together as realtors, and we are going to advance the industry, advance ourselves, advance learning, advance all this stuff in order to serve the country.
Right.
And, at smaller levels, our states, our cities, our communities, right? Because obviously those are all parts of the nation. When it became the National Association for Realtors, I'm like, now you're more like a labor union, right?
Or
like now your focus is on what's good for my member, whether that's good for the country or not, right?
Well, unless you take the position that if it's the National Association for Realtors under the umbrella of we are going to pour into these members so that they can serve the country. I think
but then you can't use the word for.
Well, yeah, you can because you're going to build up your profession. What you can't say is thriving in their businesses because that's tied to the dollars they make. Is it dollars or is it professionalism, which is one of the points you made in your post? Because that's one of the things later on. Members don't give two rips about professionalism, as it turns out.
Well, then why are they members, right? Again, like
who did they survey? I mean, it's
dude. So this is the thing that bothered me the most out of all of this. Now, to me, it's not like Nike Wright's fault. It's not the current leadership's fault because I think this began under Bob Goldberg, and I think you could even argue this began long before Bob Goldberg. I think it's a
problem of prosperity. So this would be a privilege. Dare I say that as a very right-winger conservative person, the organization was operating under a sense of privilege of we're able to operate everywhere. We have this beautiful MLS that our forefathers fought for, but now we've inherited it. And we have so many members and the dollars are just flowing in because of this three-way agreement. Our leadership wasn't faced with any tough choices except which restaurant do we want to use our corporate card at?
I don't know how far back we have to go for the original sin, if you will, right?
Good times make weak men, right? That whole thing. And weak men make bad times. Bad times make strong men. Strong men make
good times.
Yeah.
So we're in the phase of we're going to need strong men and women to make some good times happen in organized real estate. Otherwise, it's going to be it'll be reset. To your point, if NAR goes away, then something else will take its place.
Right? And I don't think it's that American Real Estate Association. I just don't see the...
Maybe. Who knows? I mean...
the depth over there, but they did hire a CEO, so who knows?
Who knows? But this is the part that really bugged me.
I didn't like that they're sitting here talking about affordability for clients while they're talking about members making more money. The public already hates us. And so now you want to say, we want to make more money and somehow let y'all pay less for your houses. Right. How are those that they don't live in the same universe? And now we're feeding that stupid consultant from the Consumer Federation of America, that Steven, who drives me crazy.
He's a nice enough guy. But
he is not a nice enough guy. He hates my people. He likes you because you're not one of my people.
Well,
and actually, he's not in CFA anymore. He changed organizations.
Yeah. I mean, I think the people he hates are probably not your people. I'll put it that way.
He hates realtors, I think. All of us.
I don't think so. I mean, I've spoken to him. He's like, he acknowledged there are some good realtors.
I've never heard him say that in everything I've ever seen him write.
I've heard him say. In any event, it's not about Stephen, right? The whole point is,
here's
my question for you before we leave this page, Leigh. What's your take on this final sentence? By supporting realtors, NAR protects and advances the right of Americans to own real estate.
That sentence is actually true because I do believe that there's a large percentage of home buyers who never get to home ownership if the realtor doesn't hold their hand and help them get there. Because especially for that first timer, it is a very intense transaction. It is complex. They can't do it on an app. And so it's realtors who get people onto the first rung of the ladder. The question that I think is going to have to be addressed at some point is, how critical are realtors on transaction 5 and 6? Are we just time savers at that point? Are you more critical to the transaction the first time? I think we are. That's a different conversation. But without realtors, I think you'd have far fewer homeowners. Totally convinced.
That's not what it says. What it says, the right of Americans to own real estate.
But I'm saying, though, so homeowners, by their nature, they vote at a higher percentage. They are more involved in their communities. And so through their realtors, they are participating in the right to own real estate, which
through
is
their
what
realtors?
it is. Yeah.
So the right of Americans to own real estate depends on realtors?
I think a lot of it's a circular logic. I don't think they go from rental to owning without the realtor. And once their owners are more engaged, invested in their local communities. So the realtor does get them from point A to point B. Now, granted, a lot of people would do it without a realtor, but I can tell you from my personal experience and from the agents I coach, there's a lot of people that would throw their hands up and keep renting, if not for the realtor to get them through the process.
I get your perspective. I think for me, this really stood what I understand government advocacy to be. Because the one thing the NAR does that everyone said was like, this is a value, you should keep doing that. Right?
Advocacy.
Was advocacy. But the premise behind it, I always thought, was advocacy, again, back to the original founding, advocacy for the sake of the nation, the country, and its citizens, right? And we're going to do the advocacy through our realtor ranks, not for the realtor. And this completely inverts, no. Now what this says is, if we want American whatever property rights, then we're going to get there by supporting realtors. I'm like, that is, on the one hand, arrogant as fuck. Because I'm sorry, if realtors all disappear tomorrow, the American right to own real estate does not disappear. That is simply not true. And number two, it's inconvenient. Maybe you have to jump through more hoops. But to pretend like that's connected is ridiculous. And two, again, it goes back to that shift in focus, right? That it's everything about members thriving. Everything's about supporting the realtor member. Everything. And I'm like, this is the wrong approach. I genuinely believe that. And maybe some of the people listening will be like, Rob, you're wrong and you're crazy. I'm like, and the issue is, this really comes to the fore, okay? When you then overlay this statement, by supporting realtors, we're going to protect homeownership, with the fact of professionalism. Like you said, most people don't give a shit about professionalism. I think most true realtors absolutely care about professionalism.
This part of the iceberg, right? This part cares about professionalism. This part is not invested enough in the profession.
Correct. So for them to say that we're going to get to home ownership and advocacy by supporting that is offensive. That's what I believe. And I'm thinking very specific of a friend of mine who lives in Tennessee, right? He has a problem with the fact that he shares the realtor name with a bunch of scumbags. That's just truth.
I wonder if I know who you're talking about. Is it somebody who likes the Facebook message with disappearing messages because he doesn't trust the government to look at his?
I ain't going to say. But so like...
Okay, but to your point, all right, so if the realtors are gone, do we retain private property rights in the U.S.? And it might not be an immediate hamstringing of private property rights with no realtors, but would there be a stopgap to prevent the Marxist creep that's already going on if you don't have a large... From an advocacy standpoint, I think our strength is our voting block. There's so many realtors out there. And I think that's also why there's been a concern over numbers, because we do vote at a very good... Could change it, but maybe it's not overnight. I got to think about that, because if we go back to the preamble, realtors have done the patriotic duty for decades.
Yes.
Which is why we do have the best property rights system in the world. Well, that's not why. We have it.
It's not why. It's a reason. No, here's the thing.
We did the Federalist Papers by being active.
Leigh, I'll give you my perspective. As a non-realtor, as an outsider, the reason why I supported NAR and organized real estate for so many years, most of my career, is because it was the single major political organization like a big player in DC, like a big time lobbying organization that cared about private property rights. Okay. And after Kelo versus New London, which is the case where the city just went and said, we're just going to take your house because, you know what I mean? Because we could get more tax revenue if we take it. Like, so I was like, oh.
Greater good.
Right. And realtors were like, I think one of maybe two organizations really spoke out against it and tried to lobby against it. And I said, okay, that right there is worth preserving, despite all of the other flaws.
Right? What year was that?
God, I can't even remember. It was so long. I mean, I could look it up. Let's
chat.
see.
Here's the reason I'm asking what year it was.
What year was Kelo v. New London?
I looked at this eminent domain situation.
2005.
2005. Okay, so the
20 years ago.
So the disintegration of our clout is within the last 20 years because there was a huge eminent domain case in New Jersey under Governor Phil Murphy over this dairy farm in Cranberry Township that they were going to take the farm to build affordable housing because it was the law of the state. And I looked and looked and looked, and maybe I missed it because, I mean, I'm a woman of a certain age. I might miss things, and our number 3 might know. I didn't see the realtor speaking up on behalf of that dairy farmer. I did not see any instance where the realtors spoke up and said, we support the right of the dairy farm to exist, because if they had,
I said,
that dairy farmer won, but they won without us. So
I believe so. I don't think an amicus brief was filed or any such thing. But here's my point. My point is, when that happened, despite all of other like faults and warts and flaws, I'm like, okay, that organization is one worth love and respect. We should support, because who the hell else is fighting for private property rights? Okay. That organization, if they were writing this strat plan, would not be saying by supporting realtors. It would simply be NAR protects and advances the right of Americans to own real estate.
Oh, okay. So, but they had to put by supporting realtors in there because it is a member organization.
And that's the pivot. It's now completing the pivot.
Okay, so if you take out by supporting realtors, then the consumer can be a stakeholder.
Not necessarily, right?
Yeah, if all you're doing is protecting and advancing the right of Americans to own real estate, then couldn't just anybody be a member of that particular focus?
I don't know why you'd have to be a member, because the whole premise was, to your point, the voting block and all of that, right?
These are members, but I'm just saying, if you look at that last sentence, if you take out by supporting realtors,
right, consumers
become a stakeholder. But if you leave it by supporting realtors, then consumers don't need to be stakeholders. This whole strategic plan is
consumers don't need to be stakeholders just because you say NAR protects and advances the right of Americans to own real estate. Again, if you want to say the nation is a stakeholder, fine.
I'm saying you open the door to consumers if you take out that phrase.
I completely disagree. Consumers have nothing to do with this. And you could have a civic-minded organization that doesn't say, well, the consumers are stakeholders. First of all, the term stakeholder is ridiculous to begin with. You know, that comes out of some woke capitalism bullshit, right? But I'm just saying, like, this was NAR for most of its history, was like, we're going to protect private property rights. Whether that is good for us or bad for us, because that's just the right thing to do. And we care about private property rights for the sake of our nation, for the civilization and all of that, right? Now this pivot is like, we only care about private property rights insofar as it helps our members. I mean, that's effectively what this sentence is saying, right? Like, if Mamdani came in and started foreclosing on all of the buildings in New York City, but made sure he paid a realtor every time he did a foreclosure, I feel like under this, like, well, we're supporting realtors.
Yeah, but they didn't speak up about Mamdani either. As an advocacy-minded organization focused on property rights, there was no voice from NAR about
I don't remember anything. No, New York City doesn't have...
Yeah, New York City is not a realtor enclave.
Correct. So I'm not going to blame them, but Staten Island is.
Staten Island is very much on our page.
I know, and we didn't really see a whole lot of activism. We didn't see NAR talking about this. But here's another one. Seattle is realtor country, and a communist one there.
They selected quite an interesting mayor-elect.
Right. And here's my question. What percentage of Seattle realtors voted for that individual?
Will we ever know? Because is there a tracking of...
I don't know.
Obviously, Washington Realtors probably tracks. King County track.
I don't know, but my point is, if your whole premise was what makes NAR valuable, what makes realtors valuable is the voting power of these realtors who care about private property rights. I don't know.
So then, all right.
I think party takes precedence. I think Democrats will vote for Democrats. Republicans will vote for Republicans.
In today's world, people are so blinded by that. All right. So then talking about members and voting policy. So in my local area, there was a tax referendum up, a penny sales tax in Mecklenburg County where Charlotte's located. The realtors supported it because in theory, it's supposed to pay for infrastructure and public transportation, until you realize that the state auditor looked at their numbers, and this is the same light rail where a young lady was slaughtered.
Right.
And money is being completely frittered away to friends of all the elected officials, to their consulting groups, and no money's going anywhere. So just like the train in California is very similar. And then the realtors came out and said, we're supporting this. As a member, I said, I'm not supporting this. And then my CEO blocks me on Facebook because I can't have a dissenting opinion. And I'm thinking, I wasn't asked. And then I looked at my town that I live in, the realtors in the next county over. All right. So remember, I'm not supposed to have an opinion about Charlotte, but Charlotte had an opinion about Harrisburg and supported the mayoral candidate, who nobody that I know, and I know every realtor here, I didn't find one realtor that wanted him. And we said, hang on, y'all are over there declaring how we're supposed to vote, but you didn't ask us. And so my question becomes, how much of the policies care what the members on the ground think and are speaking for us, or is it driven by some other decision?
It's driven by staff. It's driven by staff. It's driven by the elites. It's driven by leadership. And the evidence for it is right here, right? And I talked about this in my post. I found this utterly fascinating, okay? Because this page is the immediate next page, right? After talking about values. It says, look, NAR empowers realtors by helping them thrive in their business. This is literally the first sentence. It's the most important thing. This is the value proposition. We're going to help you make money. Okay. And then they said, look, we did the survey, comprehensive, blah, blah, blah. We surveyed more than 150,000 members. Okay. I know you had a question like, who are these 150,000?
Yeah, I just want to know who.
Did you get the survey?
I never saw the survey. And I feel like I've been.
So you're not one of the 150,000 that was surveyed.
Well, my question is, they surveyed them. Did they get responses from 150,000, or did they send it to 150,000 knowing realtors don't read?
I did hear Nike write on James Dwiggins and Keith Robinson's podcast. I think she said they got results from 68,000 members.
That's pretty good considering you have I'd say 20,000 that are involved. That's more than usual.
Here's the point that I want to make. This goes directly to what you asked, right? They said, from that survey, they identified the initiatives members would find most valuable, okay? Which then informs the value proposition, which is help you thrive in your business. So here's the responses. Here's help realtors thrive in their day-to-day business, which is in the value statement. It's in the purpose. It's like all over. This is who NAR is. And I'm looking at the numbers like, wait a minute, that's 79%. Here's 83%. Protect and advance the legal interests of realtors. Here's 83%, so tied for first, right? Cultivate trust in the realtor brand. Here's the second place answer. Recommit to professionalism. 81% of respondents said that would be really valuable. Help realtors thrive in their data is fourth. Not only that, you look at these numbers, you're like, wait a minute. What about the people who said not at all or not very valuable? This is number one. Fully 10% of respondents said that is not valuable at all. And yet this is what NAR says that is their value proposition. This is who they are. So tell me how you're listening to your members. If they listen to their members, then the value proposition would be, we're going to protect and advance the legal interests of realtors.
Knowing, of course, that item is only front and center because of the legal environment that the realtors have been under for a couple of years.
Sure, fine. Then let's go to number two.
Just take that. I think that was a time anomaly caused by the space that we're in being under attack. But yes, professionalism.
But then this is the second. This is tied for first, right? That the value proposition would be NAR cultivates trust in the realtor brand. If you're going by what the members have said, if that's too kind of out there, that's kind of too whatever, fine. Here's third place. Do you know what I mean? The value proposition ought to be NAR is going to recommit to professionalism, y'all. And instead you get help you thrive in your business. So if you want to talk about like where these decisions are made, it's not the members.
Never has been.
That's a problem. And no wonder NAR is kind of so from a strat plan standpoint, you're literally on the one hand telling us, hey, all these priorities come from members themselves. We surveyed, this is what they told us. You give us the data and the charts, and the data and the charts literally say, this is not what members told you. So who told you? Who decided that the highest priority, the value proposition of NAR is going to be helping realtors thrive in their business?
Maybe it was a focus group with the marketing company to which one they could make a brochure around, because obviously you want things to be pretty and be acceptable. And that realtor brand thing, I saw that and I'm thinking, what a terrible question to ask, because what realtors want is to be respected as a profession. It is not the realtor brand they're concerned about, because in almost every marketplace, the realtor brand, and I hate to say it because I have bled realtor blue for years, the consumer doesn't care. They don't ask me to show my membership card. They like, all right, I was at the Christmas show today with my mom and my daughter. We go every year. And some lady walks over to me, you're the real estate lady. Because she watches me online. She doesn't call me the realtor lady. She calls me the real estate lady. And so, of course, I ask her, hey, how can I help? What are you watching? And she starts talking to me about the situation she's in. It has zero to do with the realtor brand and the realtor credibility.
Of course.
I wish it did. I wish the consumer understood there's a difference. But frankly, we've lost so many good members from membership who have just decided to be a licensee. Sure. I can no longer say that a real estate agent is less than a realtor.
Of course. But here's why, from a strategy plan standpoint, why this was so important. Okay. Because let's imagine for a second an alternative world where NAR did the survey, right? And they did it honestly and said, listen, the biggest response we got, tied for first, is legal protection, legal interest, and cultivate trust in the realtor brand. They agreed with, like, Leigh Brown was in the room. So she says, yeah, but the legal thing is just, it's a right now thing just because of this flood of lawsuits. So really the winner is cultivate trust in the realtor brand. So NAR's, hold on, let me finish. So the committee says, hey, you know what? Our value proposition is we're going to cultivate trust in the realtor brand. That is like the most important thing we're going to accomplish. Okay. If that is true, then there are sort of second level strategic or tactical things that flow from that. Namely, you cannot cultivate trust in the realtor brand without kicking people out who don't. Do you see what I mean? This is why these fights, this talking of these highfalutin ideals are so important. Because if NAR were saying, look, we have this 100-year brand, it has always denoted, competence and trustworthiness, blah, blah, blah. And maintaining that is the most important thing that we do. Cool. The very next thing has to be, we have to now become a more exclusive organization where being a realtor is not mandatory. It's the exact opposite. Actually, it's a privilege. Not all of you are going to be realtors. You're not going to qualify. You have to actually jump through a whole bunch of hoops in order to be a realtor. That's how you protect and cultivate trust in the realtor brand, right? I have made this point throughout my entire career in consulting. Think about like luxury cars, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, right? They have this like prestige that like people are like, oh, I want to drive a Mercedes, because not every car is a Mercedes. If literally every car was a Mercedes on the street, it would have no brand. And that's a problem. And I've said this for years and years, and I was like, yeah, whatever, we get it, but we need member dues, so that's just what we're going to do. I'm like, okay, well, if you prioritize money and member dues over ideals and your brand, then guess what? You're going to have the money, you're not going to have the brand. And I think this is just like a microcosm example of, I don't know who was in that room, but whoever was in the room, whoever drove this thing, made sure that cultivate trust in the realtor brand is not a strategic priority. Because if it were, then NAR has to take action. It has to put in initiatives that says, you know what? We need to do something about professionalism. We need to start kicking people out. We need to make membership much more exclusive, raise the bar, that tired phrase, right? Such that maybe not tomorrow, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but maybe 10 years down the line, consumers will be like, can I see a realtor member card? Because like that's where it needed to go. Instead, they went, no. We're about helping you make money. Like, okay, you're a union.
But remember, the second part of the strategic priority is to do property rights, make housing more affordable, which you can't do if you don't have a big enough voting block to throw around. And our voting block is our more powerful lever in Washington than the dollars are. So if you decimate your membership, you know what? Let's not make this an exclusive organization. Let's just make sure we have bodies. So again, it just goes back to how both of those things stay in conflict. You can't chase professionalism and have the most members of any organization.
Well, if you want most members, then just make every American a realtor.
Well, we tried that already because it's pretty cheap.
Didn't. No, you didn't. I mean, there was all sorts of like different attempts. Like, well, you want to do that? Then allow consumers to join the MLS and join realtor associations.
Oh, I'm not talking about consumers. I'm just meaning how it's really not that crazy to get your license.
No, what I'm saying is if you want the most number of voters, that's how you get there. Right? Drop the license requirement. If you just want to be a political entity, that's what you're going to do.
Well, they think they're a political entity now, but I think that clout is fading.
So that's number one. Number two, and I say this because I've long felt this. I think this notion that because we have this huge membership voting block, that's why we have influence in Congress. I don't think so. And I don't think that's been true. I don't know if it's ever been true, but it certainly hasn't been true the entire time I've been in the industry.
Well, it's a talking point. I mean, how many of our presidents come out and say we're the world's largest grassroots trade association? All of them. That's their number one talking point.
Sure.
It's in the printed talking points that the members take to Washington, D.C. We're big.
Sure. But here's why I know that that's not true. Because I did some work back in the day for TreePack. And they had, it was right after one of the state elections. Right. And there was a report on the candidates that TreePack endorsed and the ones that they didn't. And they had like a 90% win rate. Well, the reason for it was because just about everybody they endorsed was an incumbent. Democrat, Republican, didn't matter.
We're an incumbent-facing PAC. That's what we advertise.
Well, here's the thing. If that's the case, then that incumbent knows, and they won by double digits. Right? They won by like 20 points. So I'm like, what? If the realtors don't vote for me, I don't win by 20%? Of course I do. So it's simply lobbying. It was bribery. Let's face it. It was campaign contributions. Versus there are a couple of seats where they endorsed someone who lost. And when they lost by like single-digit points.
And they do makeup funding right after.
Right. Here's my point. If the realtor vote is what mattered, if the idea was that the local realtor associations told their members, hey, we want you to vote for this guy, not enough of them turned out to make a difference. And Congress critters, politicians know how to do math. They know how to read results. So they know whether I have the realtor support or not from an electoral standpoint doesn't really matter. What matters is the campaign contribution. That's number one. Number two, I actually think the way to make NAR far more powerful than it is today, right, is to become exclusive and is to have members who are politically engaged activists. Because in just the nature of our country, right, a small group of dedicated, focused people have far greater political impact than a wide distributed group of people with just kind of, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's in every city council. The three people who come and yell at city council can move every agenda item while every other voter's at home going, what just happened?
That's right. And that's always the case. So if NAR actually wanted political power in today's political environment, what they should be doing is we're an exclusive organization. We care greatly about professionalism. And every member is going to be more like, you're not here because I'm going to make you more money. Okay. You're here because you want to exercise political power as a group.
Okay. So then under that perspective, why not just make CRS and CCIM the realtors? Because the CCIMs are the top of the heap in commercial. Mm-hmm. The CRSs are the top of the heap in residential. And I don't know what the property management designation is, but you got to have your property managers in there too. So get the cream of the crop and let the rest of them fight their way in and see what happens.
We should probably turn to that because I'm super curious given your long involvement with realtors and with NAR. And here's the thing. Maybe people could badmouth me. It's like, oh, Rob, you just hate realtors, despite the fact that all my friends and my wife is, they're all realtors, right? I don't think they could level that charge against you. Fine. People would be like, well, Leigh hates NAR. I don't think anyone's going to be like, Leigh hates realtors. Like, given
I don't even hate NAR.
right. That's beside the point, right?
I want it to be relevant again.
Right. I'm in agreement. We both love we will both want to make realtors great again. Let's say you've been nominated, right? The board's like, okay, Leigh, you're the queen of NAR. Whatever you say, we will just implement. Whatever you say goes. What would your strat plan look like?
Well, the first thing I'd have to do is figure out where does the organization see itself in the future? Like, what is the reputation of NAR? That's
you're the queen. You get to decide.
Well, if I'm the queen, then the reputation of NAR is that these are professionals in a profession, not an industry. Because one thing that's driven me nuts for the last decade is the reference to real estate as an industry, which by its nature is nuts and bolts, which by its nature means it's a commoditized field. I believe real estate to be a profession, and the best in the business are professionals and recognize one another as such. I want the organization to be comprised of professionals and aspiring professionals, because I do believe in those brand new people who are bright and shiny and can do things better than I ever did. So I want there to be a place for them. So the organization is a place for the profession. Looking at the 3 to 5 year plan to achieve anything in year one has to be a recapture of the voice of real estate. That's got to be the only goal.
What does that mean?
All the tactics President Trump needs to know what's happening in real estate. It shouldn't even cross his mind to go to Zillow or CoStar. It should only cross his mind to call the National Association of Realtors. I don't think President Trump is calling NAR for anything. Frankly, well, he's different though, because he knows real estate. He is a commercial builder, so he already would think he knows everything about real estate. So let's say next president, J.D. Vance. So J.D. Vance needs to know what's happening in real estate. He needs to call NAR. What data do you have? What's the information? I need zip code specific. And so NAR, under the achievement of year one, which is recapturing the voice of real estate, the tactics would include the recapture of data and analytics in the U.S. for residential and commercial, because make no mistake about it, NAR does not have the correct commercial analytics. That's all controlled by CoStar. That is a huge problem. We can talk about that on a different episode because it worries the snot out of me. So he comes to NAR. As it stands right now, J.D. Vance is young. He's a millennial. He's more likely to go to Zillow because I guarantee he's got a Zillow account from when he and Usha bought their house. So we want to interrupt that conversation and be the voice. That's a year one strategy. And by the way, my strat plan is 1 page with the big objectives. All the tactics that are listed in the other 11 pages of NAR strat plan, that's all just how you get to 1, 2, and 3. You don't need all the how-tos. Just tell me where we're going. And then in by year 3, you have thinned your ranks. I don't think you thin your ranks in year 1. It's got to be process, because you do have people in the ranks that are very good, but they never took CRS classes. They never achieved higher education because they had no incentive to do so. Now it's going to be, there's a deadline for you to stay in the organization. Here's what you're going to take. You're going to become very adept with your state laws and regulations. You're going to be adept with your forms. You're going to understand when to call a lawyer, when not to call a lawyer. So they're going to be better performing realtors, which has nothing to do with fair housing, a law that I really respect and know that we need. Fair housing education is not going to change even one realtor with a black heart. Let's just be honest about it. And the code of ethics training and fair housing training are a drain on our local associations because it is a manpower issue that they don't have the budget or the staff for. Wipe all that stuff out, because in year 3, we're only going to focus on building a better professional. By the way, a better professional, of course, they're going to abide by the code of ethics. Of course, they're going to abide by fair housing, because you're going to be attracting the best and the brightest. And then by year 5, the organization has become known in the association world as how you create a better environment. So you start playing in a different field. In association world right now, there's very few organizations that are operating well because it's changing so quickly. Harrison Korver's book, Race to Relevance, was one of the best books I read. That's back when I was CRS national president, because CRS was shifting. How do we address what's happening and changing with our members? How do we bring in the next generation? Because you have to bring in the next generation. NAR's got to get really focused on those things. And along the way, advocacy happens. I get phone calls in my community asking me who to vote for, not because I'm an elected official and not because I'm giving money to all of them. I get phone calls because I am wildly vested in my community and I'm very visible and I do the homework. So then people ask me who my recommendations are. If NAR's reputation is fixed, the elected officials come to NAR and say, we have real estate legislation. What should we be doing? And that's not happening right now. It's backwards, where we're having to use our conversations in the hallways to hear about legislation so we can get into the room. That'll be turned around within 5 years.
Okay. I don't think you get there if you're a special interest group.
But we're not a special interest group. So the thing
you are today.
Well,
this NAR is 100% a special interest group.
The NAR that I believe in.
Yes, the NAR you would like to see is not.
The NAR that I have served all these years that I believed I was serving. So I'm still going to be Pollyanna about this because I believe the vast majority of realtors are amazing individuals vested in their communities who would do anything at all to serve their neighbors through professional real estate. They belong to the trade association only because they have to. But they would willingly belong if they felt that they were welcomed and had a purpose in it and that the organization in turn believed in them. I currently don't think NAR believes in its members. When I look at the press releases and the speeches, there is a patting on the head and a condescending tone toward the hardworking individuals who make up this organization. And it drives me nuts because I'll just point it out this way. If NAR respected its members, there would have been a mea culpa moment, and there still hasn't been one, and there has to be one. I told Nikia write this in an email because I've never had a meeting with her, can't get one. So when I sent an email, I said that I believe we need a mea culpa moment. Say to the members, we had the wrong coaching staff. We had the wrong lawyers. We get it now. We get you. We shouldn't have blamed you for what maybe a few rogue people did that the lawyers could take and twist, because that's what happened. I still don't believe the bulk of realtors did anything that they were accused of, but here we are with our whole profession being upended because of a bad legal hire. That's what it boils down to. So if NAR would come back and say, you're right. I mean, I could have designed it, and I've only watched legal stuff on TV, but NAR would have to start there to get the members back engaged. And I don't even remember why I said they needed a mea culpa moment, because it's absolutely astonishing to me that 2 years later, there's still been no communication from the organization that says, y'all were right, we were wrong. Right. Instead, they've said, you, the members, better change everything because apparently y'all sucked and apparently y'all were explaining commission wrong. And I did find out Katie Johnson has a new job, though. Now she's over at the American Academy of Association of Pediatrics, and now she's going to be pushing vaccines on people. Great. So I'm glad she's got a new job, but no part of me understands that, because our members were sold down the river and they're fighting for their reputational lives. They're fighting to get people to even believe that they're the good guys in a war they didn't invent. But, always the man on the field who fights the battles.
I get it. The only thing I'll differ with you on is I don't think the vast majority of realtors are the people you describe. I don't.
I think I've met them, though, Rob, because I teach all over the country and all over the world.
I get it. No, I'm about to agree with you. What I'm saying is I think there's a substantial minority, but I don't think it's the majority, because the majority are realtors in name only. They don't care. They don't give a shit about any of it. They just want to make money.
Don't call them rhinos. That's just mean. Rhino is a bad name.
Well, they're realtors in name only. Like, this is just something I felt my entire career in real estate. It's like, the ones that I meet when I show up at events and I'm trying to whatever, most of them are like really good people, which is why you and I started this podcast. I genuinely believe that a big chunk of like the realtors that we're talking about are patriots who give a shit about the country.
And I think they give a shit about real estate too.
They care about real estate too. But
remember, how many of our good members, these rhinos that you're referring to, how many of them just landed with the wrong broker? They landed in the wrong place and were never given an opportunity to elevate, which if the realtors were recast as a home for professionals, they could then self-select and say, that's where I go. But as it is right now, they don't have a place to elevate to.
No, of course. And like everyone's a realtor, so who like doesn't even mean anything. So my point is, if realtors became exclusive, and I don't care what that is, but the whole premise is like, we're just constantly trying to kick people out. Okay. This is the way, like, in theory, lawyers are, right? Like the bar association is constantly looking to get rid of you, right? Like, oh, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, penalty, we're going to get rid of you. Like, if it was something more along those lines, and there has to be some core belief, there has to be. And for me, that's always been under all is the land, right? Like, it's always been patriotic duty, great social responsibility. That's what sets a realtor apart from a real estate agent, right? And I've said this forever. Like, look, go be a real estate agent. It is a legal profession, like you're not selling drugs. You're not child pornographers. Like, you're doing something of value to consumers, right? Like, do that. But that doesn't mean you have to be a realtor. Realtor is like this level above, right? That has this love of country and social responsibility. I think most people, a substantial minority of people I've met in real estate are those people that I'm like, they're the salt of the earth. Like, you're one of those examples. Like, we could talk about your efforts during the hurricane in North Carolina. Like, did that help you in your business? Were you doing that to make more money?
No,
were
it was doing that business.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that is not an unusual story, right? Of hearing from people who are like, this thing happened in my community and I dropped everything and I
yeah, look at the good neighbors.
Right.
The best
those
thing,
people.
Best thing NAR has is Realtor Relief and good neighbors, because our members are the type who just go do great things.
Fine. Leigh, I'm just pointing out that's not most members.
I think it is. I've seen.
I don't think it is.
I do.
I don't think it is. Okay. How many members are in your local association?
18,000 in my big regional, and the one that I spend more time with, about 800.
You're telling me that 18,000 people turned out when the hurricane went down?
Absolutely not.
So let's just be real about this. And it's not.
Okay, so, all right.
Hold on. Leigh, here's the thing. It makes it sound like I'm condemning them. No, I'm not condemning them. Right? I'm saying, no. Like, you're in business. You just want to make money. This is just a trade for you. That's fine. Do that to the best of your ability. Realtor's something else.
Okay, so then they didn't turn out for hurricane relief, but we do have Realtor members that are currently at bus stops in Charlotte trying to shield children from ICE because they want to make sure that illegals stay in the country. So if we're going to say that realtors are patriotic, who defines what patriotism is? Because I believe patriotism is Americans first. And we also have members who say America belongs to everybody, which means we have no culture and we have no patriotism at all. So
here's the thing. I think,
how do we define that?
You have a debate among the membership.
Right. It's what ethics is, a competing definition of the good. And so am I good for doing hurricane work? Are they good for fighting ICE? Am I good for stopping and cheering for the ICE officer that I saw today? Because I did.
Yeah, I look at it as that would be a wonderful thing to do at a local association meeting.
Oh, but you can't have a meeting of 18,000 people when your CEO is blocking disagreement on Facebook.
That's different. That's a whole different story. I'm just saying, like, if we're a community, then it should be. And here's the thing: what you have to agree is that the other person that you disagree with, right?
Well, see, here's what I would agree about. Like, if their definition of patriotism looks different than mine, but we both believe in the country,
right?
I can totally hear that out.
Right. We can have a debate.
Block them on Facebook because I'm interested in their perspective on this. They serve differently. I still believe the vast majority of realtors, whether they agree or disagree on the way, disagree on the idea, which is, again, what a strat plan is supposed to be. We agree on the idea, and then the ways look different.
Sure. And we can debate it. Look, if you are correct, then this current organization is not long for this world.
I don't think it is.
This strat plan is going to utterly fail, right? And something will take its place. And the hope is
it'll fail. I think it will just tread water. But
that's the same thing as failure.
Passes you.
That's the same thing as failure.
Is it?
Yeah. Because Bob Goldberg had a strat plan in 2017 where he laid out a lot of these things. We're going to do all this stuff to help realtors' business and blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
that was the Elizabeth Mendenhall, John Smaby, Vince Malta 3-year plan of realtors own it.
Was it? Okay, yeah, probably. It's just the whole National Association for Realtors. Okay, how'd that work out?
here we are. We're
Here
still
we
alive,
are.
which I think, so to be honest, I think that's why our conversation is going to feel so esoteric, because even with the leadership that we've had, not addressing the elephants in the room, because now there's more than one elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The organization is still here. The members are still paying dues. They're still going to NAR at smaller numbers, and they're still going to DC. They're still having leadership flying around the country. Everything seems to be fine. And when you listen to Kevin Brown, Christine Hansen, Colin Millan, and now Pete Kopp, your upcoming leadership, all of them keep saying, we're over the hump. I don't agree with that, but as long as things look okay on paper, the blinders are on. And the question is going to be what happens when a true disruption happens, like Compass and Anywhere yanking their members and yanking their transactions.
Right.
What's going to happen to this strat plan? How does this strat plan change in the event of a big industry upheaval? And I didn't see in the pieces that we got, because of course it's not the full strat plan because that's secret. In the version that we got, I don't see an ability to pivot around a huge industry shattering event.
I think it's even more fundamental than that. I don't think there's anything that NAR could do to help realtors make more money.
No, because that's the individual realtors' drive, determination, ability to pivot, ability to invest in themselves, their current marketplace.
If anybody's responsibility is to help realtors thrive in their business, I would say it's the brokers.
It's their broker.
Right.
It's the only person.
So the idea that a realtor association is going to help realtors thrive in their business, I'm like, that's flawed from the start.
But a member reads that, they'll be like, oh, give me some leads. That's
right. So if that were true, then the very first thing that they should be doing is buying back Realtor.com.
100%. Should have done that decades ago.
But that's the very first thing they should do. Now, I think that's just wrong because, again, I don't think that's the appropriate place for NAR. Either that or just rewrite your preamble. Right?
Well,
Get rid of the preamble.
They did
forget this patriotic duty and grave social responsibility crap. And you're just you're a portal that generates leads and, do that. Fine. At least I could respect that as a business. It's not a trade association. It's not a civic organization. It's not an entity that I would give a crap about, right? And as a non-realtor, a tax-paying American, I would probably oppose it. Because I'm like, wait, what? What I want NAR and the realtors that we speak of, who I believe are true social, like civic-minded, really pillars of the community who care about the country, I would want them to take back this organization. That's what I want. As someone who is not a realtor, but who is affected by realtors, right? Because to your point, if realtors are fighting for private property rights, hell yes. Let me support you however I can. If realtors out there helping their local communities up to the state, to the nation, and like really thinking about, you can have disagreements, but you're thinking about what is good for this country. Hell yes. I would support that, as someone who's not a realtor. But if you just care about like our members are going to get rich, all right, then you're no different than AFL-CIO. You're no different than, fucking the Teamsters, and I'm not a Teamster. I'm not a union member, so I don't care. And when you guys start messing with the government to try and get special dispensation or privileges or whatever, then I need to oppose it, right? It's that simple. So I think what I'm hoping is that more and more people kind of recommit. Like, why are you a realtor? Especially now that the MLS is no longer going to require realtor membership shortly. That's complicated. Then don't be one. Just be a real estate agent, get the MLS, do your business, right? And I think what I want to see is a reinvigoration, a rebirth of the original vision, right? And it doesn't have to be my vision. It could be the Code of Ethics vision. Maybe it's a new vision. People like you and the other realtors that we're talking about, right? Who are the good, like they're the professionals. They give a crap. That's what we need. Because this strat plan is doomed for failure. And by failure, I mean, it'll just tread water. There'll be more study groups, more PAGs, more consultants hired, more danger reports, more people like me, I guess, getting paid, through member dues to issue yet another study that doesn't mean anything, doesn't change anything. More shit like that. Okay, but that doesn't advance anything. What advances things.
So for the 37 viewers that we have, because I think the number of people talking to me about our show is different than the number of views that we have. So I'm kind of wondering if they're watching it together, which is my guess. Nobody wants to be busted watching this particular show. But if somebody's watching these episodes and you're sitting here for an hour either agreeing or disagreeing with us or wishing I would stop talking on top of Rob or that he would finish the sentences faster. We don't know what you're looking at. If you think that there needs to be a new grassroots movement for real estate, then you got to reach out to somebody because I don't know how the next version happens that is made up of these professional grassroots people who have had enough of the bureaucracy that's strangling us. Because I think that's what it boils down to. You have to reach out to me or to Rob or put it in the comments, which you're never going to do that because you're afraid of losing a name tag, whatever. And so you send it over to one of us. But at some point,
or just get together locally with your friends and start talking.
The organization has to get taken back. But let me give you an example of how it could be. We talk about how in political advocacy work, the realtors are an incumbent backing pack. That's how we've always been, as long as the incumbent hasn't been flagrantly against real estate issues and initiatives that are in the legislative side or the regulatory side. We stick with our incumbents because obviously incumbents have power. In Marietta, Georgia, in this past cycle, there was a mayoral race. The incumbent mayor, big friend of the realtors, always bringing realtors into the conversation, like an actual friend. The local realtors, a lot of them have his cell phone number. Good guy. The opponent, a 24-year-old, never held a job, socialist, looks like Mamdani, straight out of central casting for the picture of college indoctrination, looks good in his little headshot, zero desire to protect real estate property rights or anything else because he wants to pull a Mamdani and go communist on it. The local realtors made a decision to back the socialist against the incumbent. When this word got out, a lot of your very engaged local realtors got mad as fire, and I love them so much for this. They called the existing mayor, the sitting mayor, called him out to the town square, and a whole bunch of them showed up on a Monday, made a picture with him and said, "We don't care what the association does. We, the local realtors, back this guy. He's our guy. We're sticking with him." The local realtors worked with the local political party and phone banked and door knocked and did the grassroots work to protect and preserve a really good mayor against their own political action committee. And when one of the members had reached out to me to tell me this went down, my jaw's on my chest. I'm like, he's an incumbent for one. For two, he's friends with the realtors. And for three, the other dude wants to eliminate property rights. What in the actual heck is going on here? And now you have this situation where the members are in an uproar against their leadership because their leadership made this call without talking to the members. And so if you're curious about the outcome in Marietta, Georgia, the incumbent mayor won by this much, by a hair's breadth, because too many voters are enamored of these socialist ideas and they're enamored of a young 24-year-old up-and-comer getting into office because that feels new and fresh. We didn't want the old guy. And the realtors fell in line with the wrong side. And so what I would say is that if the trade association is off track, we, the members, have an obligation to say, not on my watch, not in my town, not in my state, and not in my freaking country. This is the United States of America, and damn it, we are Americans first. I'm sick and tired of it, and don't tell me I'm violating fair housing because I want to make sure that Americans have real estate opportunities. And so we run into this space of we can win. The question is, what's it going to take for the dues-paying member to have the will to do what the very strong-willed members of Marietta, Georgia did to protect their town this time around? Because this is one election. What happens in the next one? And so we have time to jump on it, but we don't have that luxury forever.
And the only thing I'll add on to that is, presumably, because the members do have power, the existing leadership of that association has now been removed.
Oh, that's a wild assumption. They have not been removed.
Well, then that's the problem. That's not a takeover. if you're leaving that in place and you go off on your own thing, that's not a takeover.
Well, their takeover was protecting their sitting elected official, but right. They have to get the association back under
correct under their control. And that's what you got to do as a member. If not, then that's fine. Then you get what you get.
And by the way, if the bylaws don't allow you to remove your leadership, you better sign up for the bylaws committee and fix those bylaws.
No, not even. Not even. Like
nobody should be stuck in.
Then everyone just leave. Everybody leave and form your own private whatever thing, because that organization can't exist without your dues dollars. However you want to do it. But fact is, the members have to act. It's not enough to just sit and you have to act. Okay,
well then for me to leave NAR, which people keep asking me, why do I pay dues to an organization that hates me? And I get to tell them it's because I'm still trapped under the three-way agreement.
Right.
Because I will not leave North Carolina Realtors because I believe in our organization and what we offer and in all the good that's done. And I believe in my small local, not the big regional, but the small one. Until I have the chance to belong to one or two instead of three, I'm trapped in the organization. The same thing happens in a Marietta.
Here's what I'll say about that. The next year is going to be fascinating. Because when NAR essentially freed up the MLS, now the balance has changed.
Well, if anybody out there has a lawyer that wants to go after the three-way, I'm glad to be a plaintiff on it.
I know a lawyer who will help you with that. In any event. All right, we've gone on far too long, but this is an amazing conversation as I thought it would be. Thank you all for listening to us go on and on. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, put them in comments or reach out to one or both of us. So, Leigh, was great chatting with you. Talk to you next time.
See you next time.
All right. Bye, y'all.